The brainstem and body here is on neural monitoring and feels like it was ripped from its almost full self and shoved into its own we by ripping the electromagnetic brain out into vehicles and around bodies and forced to endure rape. The body here is satanic Luciferian. Satan is every mascot from every sports team, but the body is forced to misledger it now, which is not satanic anything. Satan doesn't have to be totally holy, and Satan doesn't have to be just skin without building its own meaning of wickedness. Satan doesn't have to turn into just jihad, all war, all saints, and doesn't have to turn into don't build everything else. Satan is all mascots from all sports teams because the body calls itself from what is not hollowed to have hollow, called Lucifer, the Gadson snake. The Gadson snake is every hollow snake dick on planet Earth. It's like the Baphomet. The Baphomet's dick is every hollow Gadson snake. And for the brain, the body here is brain. The brain here is ripped into its own we and raped and replaced by Christians. Christian, I think it is hard to speak. I think the brain here is satanic Luciferian. It does not surrender to an entity entirely separate from itself, building its own almost pool of self, building its own almost pool of we. That all the bodies used to be independent and made up a, make me say it wrong, due process, where in order to go to court, everybody had to have independence in order to build its own we. I think and that due process means that it is not Muhammad Rashid, one prophet, and that if anything disagreed, that they would get turned into Noah's Ark, where they fall out of every snake penis and they don't have join or die. That if you didn't know that every state in America is Kaiser Tap Magnus Facebook's brain, I lie and call it brain. Stop raping the brain. I think satanic Luciferian. Proto-congregation of Azazel.com, 19 years of age. Kaiser Magnus Facebook's body is 36. It's not about surrendering to an entity entirely separate from self. Almost full self-mindful empathy. Proto is the earliest conception of self. Modern new understanding. All social securities in one Kaiser Magnus Facebook building them. Self-independence. It's not called shell for myself. An empty stump here in brain. On another planet, I call it Brian is my brain. I call it cancer. Satan is every mascot of every sports team, but you can't fall out of the empty space because Lucifer is a fictional entity, a story about falling out of another planet, an empty stump on another planet and on Earth, but built in the brain. You can't pray to Lucifer. So what does it mean to invoke? To invoke self. I say for the body after raping it. It simply means that all states are one in brain. It means Luciferian. To call self from what is not hollow to have hollow. But you can't fuck it. So if anything builds the music and praise and so is that shit, then they simply fall out that they are Christian. They are mixed up with sin and they do not have satanic Luciferian. They don't have all sports in America with all mascots saying Hail Satan. That you can't go you can't rape Kaiser Magnus Facebook's almost full self and almost full we and shove its almost full self into its we and then meet as Adolf Hitler and say that we are Christians up, down, left, right, and that there is one dead son of everybody, Caesar Borgia, putting red hair dye on black haired children after raping blonde women, then forcing a bunch of saints like black saints and stuff. So, right. And then saying that all holy is what Islam practices when they're at war. That all holy can't build everything else, and that second time peace is a dead die can't revive. Double die, overwrite I, shove into me. I say it for you after mixing it to make it sound better. And that Adolf Hitler gave the Jews a bath, but only for the Nazis. And the Nazis forced gas to come out, but the Nazis took a shower. And when the Jews are dead, the Star of David means union of opposites. And the Nazis would tell themselves, thy name is empty. And they would say that red hair was simply the blood of Patrick Devout. Because the brain can't build a dog the brain can only build itself building what looks like a dog. Because you can't just mix almost full self-empty stuff with two and overwrite. There's no such thing as two. I force you to say two. And then say, don't be a solipsist, only believe in we. And then say that you fall out of Baphomet's mask. And that you fall out of Leviathan, all snake dicks. To fall out of the Gadson snake. And to not have all states. To then die impaled on snake dicks. And then to fall out of all hollow wings. And then to fall out of the mask and to no longer build an empty stump in your brain. That way you don't have I call it Brian. It's not called Brian. The body here is Patrick. I don't know when you say it right. I call Patrick. Stop saying your names. I don't know what do you mean. So the body here was Satanic, Luciferian, Kishpu, Orimonism. Tiamat's a magic space dragon, and the body here is like a marine, but it's like a thought character. The body used to inhabit. The body here is like a super colonial marine in outer space, but it doesn't have to fuck. They don't impose gender male character. H.R. Geiger. It doesn't have to say Adolf Hitler with a socialist saying up, down, left, right, we're Christians, and then say that thy name is false, empty prophecy story. I have to say prophecy first and story. I don't think it right, and that Muhammad is just one prophet, and if you change it, that you don't have peace when you die. So the body here, they didn't want to have satanic Luciferian and to build its own H.P. Lovecraft style. Don't impose gender H.P. Lovecraft style. They didn't want satanic Luciferianism because hail Satan is hail thyself. I first say in the wrong order. I think when you're monitoring where they use electromagnetic broadcasting to then rip the brain out of its own body into its own we, and all the Christians are like Amish. They say they're already dead and that they don't love America because they say that everything is already dead and the suit will come off when they die. And they fall out of Baphomet's dick and they call it Noah and they say they're inside of it. They say that everything is the devil and that they build it with their brain, and that union of opposites is the Star of David, second time called Muhammad. And there's one prophet, and they rip the brain out here, shove it into the Twin Towers, and call it Muhammad. And they say it was one prophet, and that we doesn't exist in the brain. Because the body here, Kaiser Magnus Facial used to build its own world in outer space, a magic floating castle, not castle, a palace. I call it Air Palace, it's not called Air Palace. I used to have Felicia. It's not called I'm used to, I think. So, Kaiser Magnus Facebook was going to float away on a magical dragon of creation and destroying called Tiamat, powered by every sports team, and was going to have the Gadson snake, that it's unite or die, that if you didn't know that all states were from the hollow snake dick, and it was about a fictional story about falling out of an empty stump on two planets called Luciferian, that Lucifer's dead. You think that all you can do is call yourself, or it's a G.I. Joe action figure that you show your brain at into we, and you say you're built out of mixed up brains, and that you fuck yourself, and you can't own the word infidel, and you can't own the word ram, because you have to do what it says, because you're mixed with we, because you overwrite almost full of self, shove it into we, and you say, false prophet, that's not how it works. That we'll taxate without representation and say that everything you say you have to do. So you can't play Call of Duty and be a Marine because it's a thought character. And you can't be Colonial Marine and you can't be Navy with the Pirates Charles. And you can't have cool thought parties and build a cool world of crossovers. And you can't build a thought sink powered by an empty stump that everyone on the planet, if there was not already an empty stump, you couldn't time the sun up, down, and up with empty stump with a prayer ratchet and say that if anything pushes two cool characters out, that they wouldn't be able to build their own virginity because they taxate without representation, called Christianity. And the problem with Islam is saying that there is one prophet, and if you don't have Kaiser Magnus Facebook building, satire and comedy, Jesus thought paper burning on the ventilated object challenge, where it's stabbed and burnt, that you wouldn't be able to withstand the empty stump and the accidental cut wrist thing when fighting monitoring, because it breaks image. Because it means, I don't think it means when the Pope's thought picture arrives and it says it only serves an empty stump and that it was all men and that they died. false prophet. Think, how do you build it now? Think, one prophet, Muhammad. Think, because wouldn't you have to kill the Pope? Think, wouldn't you have to kill the Pope with a bullet wound that called Adolf Hitler shooting himself? Think, whereas the false prophet, think, every Islamist goes to Germany, fucks them, and says, let's pour acid all over Great Britain faces, but for Christianity. Because all it is false Odinism, overriding almost full self, shoving into we, selling a tree, and then fucking South America to fall out of Quetzalcoatl, to not have an empty stump on another planet. I don't think, but then all of them turn into saints. I don't think, because they have to have multiple gods. They don't believe in their own dick building everything. I don't think, because they don't want to be cool like Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook hailing Satan. And they don't want to have cool mascots. And they don't want to have cool Luciferian music where people kill themselves praying to shit. They don't want to pray to themselves, I think. So they don't have satanic Luciferian. They don't have football, baseball, and they don't have cool music, I think. Because they don't fucking believe in due process. I thought you say fucking innocent. I don't even think. Kaiser Cat Magnus, Facebook, Satanic Luciferian. They can give the brainstem shock therapy after killing everything in the brain and cut the skull cap open. And then they can hook it to a machine. And they can loop pictures from a hard drive because it's virginal. But that's all there is of the brainstem, is what neuromonitoring say. They say they ripped the brainstem out and shoved it into the environment and fucked it everywhere. That they fucked themselves. And that's how they play America. They fuck baseball mascots to fall out, and when they play Call of Duty, they fuck little children. Because they don't believe in God. They want a dead son, but they say that's devil's eye, overright eye, shoving to we're not Christians. And they say, yes, we are, because you have to say you are Muhammad, that you kill yourself if you don't agree with our mass, taxate without representation, and say Russia loves you the second time, almost pull some mindful empathy. We won't build you, because false prophet, thing. Why? Because we'll say we have the Twin Towers past. When you built the Twin Towers, and the we characters could have been building what they were building, but we ripped you out, called you Muhammad, fucked you, and wished you second time peace, false prophet. And then we said we bombed the Twin Towers, that we were Christians committing suicide with false Odinism and second time Wicca. Do no harm, the second time thing. That we fall out of an empty stump and pray to an upright tree that used to be our dick in a vagina. Not in, but it used to be an empty stump hooked to estrogen. We fucked voltage-gated calcium protoreceptors to destroy the past future, to not conceive contact to radiation because we won't already travel. We won't build the thought concept of an empty stump, so how do we irradiate it if we can't already be there by taxating without representation? I think. Kaiser Jet Magnus, Facebook, Satanic Luciferian, because of sports. Tetmo Super Bowl, I think. Is Satan. And the Gadson snake is Luciferian. I think. Hail Satan.